Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona at the home of Cody Nelson, the Go Hunt Optics Manager at Go Hunt Gear Shop. And we've also got Cortland Thude here. He's the Territory Account Manager for Zeiss Sport Optics. Guys, we've had a great podcast before, and I look forward to having you guys on again and doing some chatting here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us on, Jay. This is great, and it's looking forward to always hashing it out with Mr. Cortland Thude.
Hashing it out once
Thude.
again. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me back on. Looking
Yeah.
forward to diving into this stuff and see what we can do.
By the way, just so you know, he's the one without a beard this time.
Wow.
I'm the beardless one.
Jay's the beardless one today.
Yeah, it must be something in the water around here. Guys, we're going to have a great episode today. We're going to talk a lot about Zeiss. We're going to answer a bunch of listeners' questions. On the way over here, I got a question from a listener, and he was basically saying that the December Coues deer hunt starts for him tomorrow. And I know there's a lot of guys that listen that the Coues deer seasons are kicking off. You know, we've had the October seasons, the November, the early December seasons. Now we're kind of in that late hunt period where people call it the rut hunt. I argue that, typically the deer don't rut till later after Christmas and definitely rut a lot in January. But he asked, basically, do you have any last minute tips for me? And so I sent him a couple messages. On those situations, I like to kind of just press the button and actually talk to the person. So he, gets to hear my voice, gets to hear the inflection, and tried to point out some things on field judging, tried to point out some things on tactics. But I thought I would just go ahead and say it here and then let you guys kind of weigh in. You guys are both avid Coues deer hunters. I think one of the things to answer the question is I think a lot of guys go out early and they go hard for the first week, maybe 10 days. And that's great. And a lot of great bucks get killed in that time frame. Mm-hmm. But I also see a lot of guys go out early and they go so hard that they burn up all their vacation time. They burn up their time with their wife of, honeydew time. And then when the hunting gets really, really good after Christmas, it seems that there's Christmas obligations, New Year's obligations, all those sorts of things, but they've kind of burned their time early. Mm-hmm. So I try and tell people to go the first couple days, get a feel for it. If you don't have the time to hunt the whole period, mm-hmm. to kind of strategize on when is the most effective time. Granted, I think the first couple days could be great. You could catch those bucks that have had a little bit of a break from, some of the other seasons.
Yep.
But then I think it's important that you focus on when those deer are going to be most out in the open, right. Most potentially chasing does. And I think we would all agree the beauty of these late December hunts
activity.
Are that late that activity
Absolutely.
In that late period of time.
Yep.
So that was one of the things I pointed out. And the other thing was, as that hunt progresses, there's a transition where all of a sudden, just one day you wake up and there's deer just really all over the hillsides. They're a lot more visible. Bucks are chasing does almost like a flip of a switch. The other thing is, like, sometimes I've seen it where you can bounce around in different pockets. Yep. One of the nice things I like about some of the 22s, 23s, 21s, 6As, some of those types of units, you can hit on the highways or the freeways and be from, you can be 25 miles away and maybe hit a pocket that's rutting and then pop down and there's nothing going on. So you pop back up to where they're rutting.
Yep.
In southern Arizona, I don't see that quite as much where they get pockety like that. But if you guys are listening and you have a unit where you can access different parts of the unit and just see what's shaking, see what's going on, and kind of monitor their behavior, that might put you right on a pocket where the deer are going to be rutting.
My thing when you said that, like just in the very beginning, is big views. I want to take in as much country as possible and get the biggest look I can get and look for the pockets of does, because that's going to dictate, like, what's going on over there versus what's going on. It could be ridge to ridge, let alone, 25 miles away. So I think it's literally being able to don't put all your, unless you've got like a really big buck located and you've seen them.
Or you have an area that you specifically want to hunt the whole time.
That's a whole different deal. I get it. But if you're just out and you haven't had the time to scout, I'm looking for big views, and put the glass out and let it walk and let it, let's just see what's going on.
And don't
just take the temperature.
And don't get discouraged when you're seeing those does, because especially on this December hunt, you see those does the first week. There may not be any bucks around, but like Jay was saying, flip of a switch.
Yep.
There could be 5 bucks chasing the same 4 or 5 does in a week.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there, Cortland. Like, seeing does, you feel like, well, shoot, there's just 5 does. There's nothing going on. But literally, you could come back in 7 days or 10 days, and there's, like you said, 5 bucks chasing one doe.
Yep. All it takes is that one hot doe to bring those bucks in. So.
Right. And focusing, too, on these early days, like, where are the doe groups? What's going on the hillsides? What's their behavior? Are small bucks nosing around and with does? That might give me an indication that, hey, that little, 75-inch buck is really nosing that doe.
Yeah.
It's very possible that maybe a big buck might be there the next day. So I like to do kind of like what Cody was saying, like kind of just spot checking, just seeing what's shaking.
Yep.
But then as the hunt progresses and, from Christmas to New Year's, if you can really focus on that time frame, you have a really good chance that you're going to find some mature deer literally nosing and chasing does.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, Jay, is it's such a first of all, it's my favorite time of year. It's my favorite time to be out glassing from, basically December on through, into the February. But like when the hunt starts, because you got bow hunter starting tomorrow in a bunch of units, and you got the rifle, the late rifle deer tags. And I think you got to hunt when you can hunt. And I was talking to Rob Vanderkoy yesterday. His son's got the tag in a unit, Central Arizona. And so we were talking about it, and, they're like, well, we only have a certain amount of days and it's all spread out. And I would rather have that than take all the days and just put them at the end and then get snowed out or weathered out. So,
or fogged out.
Yeah, or fogged out. So there's a lot of, ambiguity to sometimes what you're doing. But yeah, I would always take the later days if it's going to be good weather. And I tell you what else that I think we were talking about before we actually started today. The moon, the brightest full moon is like over the next 3 days.
Right.
And look, at the time of the rut, anything can happen. And I think the deer are going to be more active, period. But the moon is going to be, I woke up at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this morning, and I looked outside. I'm like, I didn't need a flashlight. I could see everything going on. So,
well, and to add to that too, there's some people that don't really buy into the moon. They don't buy into the moon phases. I'm going to tell you that I'm 100% belief that if you're hunting coos deer in a full moon, you're going to struggle. Now, one of the things that if you are hunting during a full moon, in my opinion, the first hour or two of light is slow.
Yep.
But sometimes around 9:30, all of a sudden the deer that they've been up between 2 in the morning and 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, then they lay down when the sun is coming up and they lay there for a couple hours. Make sure you guys, during these full moon periods, especially when it's colder outside, make sure you're glassing from 9 to 2 or 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then also expect the last hour or two to not be prime time.
Exactly.
I see prime time when there's a full moon. I see it being from 9 to 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we actually experienced that on my November hunt this year. We had the full moon. It was 100% full the second day of the hunt. I shot my buck the first afternoon. But we were watching deer stand up and rotate in their bed and lay back down at 6:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And we saw more bucks between 10 and 2 than we did any other time of day.
That's
Yeah.
textbook.
Yep.
That's it.
A couple other tips that I gave this gentleman too from a field judging perspective, and I'd like to get you guys to weigh in on it, is, these late December hunts historically are periods of time when guys are seeing better bucks in general. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is the temperature and it's cooler and they just happen to be up more.
Yeah, they're more visible. Yeah.
And I don't think they're buried in the brush quite as much. But from a field judging perspective, I always like to tell guys on coos deer, point length is everything. So when you take the percentage of score over the history of bucks, the bucks that have the longest points score more.
Yep, I
The
agree.
next category is the main beams. So on the main beams, you want those beams to go out away from their head and to go, get as much length and wrap around as possible. When you're looking at a buck head on, you want those beams to wrap around, and then you want them to tip up if possible, tip down. But if they can come within an inch or two, you've got, an 18-inch main beam, so you've got 36 inches right there. The other thing is, back to point length, like, every point needs to look long in order for a buck to score really high. So there's those bucks that are wide, and then, but the points are short. And they're only a 3-point, but a short eye guard, short G2, short G3, but it's wide. Well, width is the last bit of consideration when it comes to scoring credit as far as percentage of total score.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather have a buck that's 11 inches wide, but his points are, he goes 4, he goes 9, and he goes 8
Absolutely.
on his G2 and
All day
G3.
long.
Absolutely.
And, a good rule of thumb is you want 7+ G2s, you want 7+ G3s, to get you in that 100+ category. And the only other thing I'll add, and I'll let you guys jump in, is most every single buck over 100 inches, when you are looking at binos, and I would even argue no matter how far of a distance, once they get 100 and above, they look pretty big.
Yeah,
They
just
do.
they have that
Yeah.
that boxy, brackety kind of.
The frame
That
look,
frame
you
look.
can just see
Well,
them.
when you get that much antler too on a deer's head, that's not realistically is not very big. It definitely makes them stand out, especially if you got 2 or 3 bucks together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And body size is everything. But and we're going to be talking about Zeiss optics here, and having good optics and the ability to be like, wow, that's a big frame, and he's got long points, and look at his beams. I mean, that's where you're getting into bucks that are 100+ category for
Try
sure.
to get as many angles on them as possible.
And with that being said, if you get angles and you're like, he doesn't look that good, normally like 100-inch plus bucks, they look pretty
Good-
good
good-
no matter what
Yeah,
angle.
absolutely. And they always look big walking away too. So
Well, I was going to say that
Yeah.
that was my next thing was that the toughest angle to judge, or I think people get overexcited when they walk away from you.
yeah.
They're like, "Oh, look how wide!" And
I think that goes with every
well,
animal.
and they
I
do,
think
and
you're
they
right,
and
yeah.
they and it's kind of funny, because a lot of times especially if they're jumped or running away from you or doing, they'll pin their ears back, and everything looks wide when they do that. So
I keep saying one more
cognizant
thing.
of
I
it.
get all fired up about this, but the other thing that I told the gentleman, especially on these December hunts, is glass with binos on a tripod. Sit and use the sun in the morning as your advantage. So a lot of times you're looking at east-facing slopes. The sun's at your back. You're looking with the sun
yep,
blowing the hill up, glowing the hill, if you will. The deer are going to pop. But then as the day transitions, and obviously a lot of it depends on temperature, but as the day transitions, those deer will start seeking the shade pockets. And so an afternoon glassing session, you're going to see more deer if you can glass into the shaded pockets, because that's where the does, and that's certainly where the bucks are going to be trying to get out of the heat of the sun.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny that you say it, because I was just looking, Jay. I looked at the weather where I'm going to be, and there's a 12-degree difference in the sunrise temperature, and so I think a lot of times too, if you should be in position, you should be glassing, in that twilight up to the sunrise, but really use that sun, because those deer will stand up and they will take every bit of warmth they can
Absolutely.
get.
Yep.
And they will absolutely stand there. And I've actually watched them stand up, get in the sun, get that, kind of shake off and do their thing and stay heated. And they'll lay right back down in the same spot and just sun there until they feel like it's, it's time to go or move or stay there. But it's, where I'm going to be, it's going to be 28 degrees on Monday, and it's 40 degrees on Friday. So it's a big difference in temps.
Yeah, and I think Coues deer are a lot like bighorn sheep as well. They have very thin hides, thin skin, and I think they conserve energy better by actually laying. And I notice this in Mexico a lot when I'm down there in the month of January on those really, really cold mornings where we may get in the low 20s, even sometimes the teens. Like for the first couple hours, the deer, they're just going to be bedded.
Yeah.
They can conserve more energy and stay warmer by actually laying.
Yeah.
Whereas I hear a lot of the Midwest whitetail hunters and back east where they say, oh, cold morning, those deer are on their feet. Well, our deer being thin-skinned, I see them laying in the sun. Mm-hmm. They'll get up, they'll go over, and they'll just lay so the sun is hitting them, and they may lay there for 2 hours.
Yeah, or all day, depending on how cool it is that day.
Yeah.
And if you have a little bit of wind, we found late in the season, you tend to get a little bit more weather that moves in, especially end of December, right around Christmas. And we've seen a lot of those bucks literally laid out in the sun all day if there's a decent wind going, because I think they're conserving their energy, but they're also gaining as much heat as they can. So it's definitely they've definitely got a different attitude about things.
I think one of the things to hit on the on the late deer season, there's people that say that killing a big buck and patterning a big buck and I think patterning is probably the key word, but finding a big buck like in the early seasons or like the youth hunt or whatnot in October, when the rut starts to come on and the later you get, if the big buck that you found or you had on camera or whatever, and he's not around, you've got to broaden your view. Whether you got to move to another side of the ridge or bigger, I just would flat out tell people if he's not where you normally see him, it's just the time of year. They're more active. They're moving more. I think if you go back to the old reports of the Game and Fish and the studies they did, I think their area like quadruples.
During this time period, like mid-December through the end of January, bucks can go just completely AWOL. The converse of that, though, is I think sometimes people have photos of a buck or they've seen a buck scouting and then they just go, oh, I didn't see him, he's not there.
Yeah.
I would argue until you've exhausted every single angle and you've made sure that buck's not there, that then you broaden your search and continue looking.
Exactly.
I think that Richard Ockenfeld study that you're talking about.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the Ockenfeld.
He shows like the 15th through the end of January, sometimes those bucks can go like 5 miles.
Yep.
And 5 miles in Coues deer country, as you know, is incredible. But the flip side of that, though, is too, you might be glassing a basin and haven't seen anything. All of a sudden, a buck comes walking into your life that you're like, oh, I love you.
Well, there's, and I think it's been proven time and time again. How many guys do you know that have sat in the same spot and they're not seeing the deer, and all of a sudden, 4 days later, the deer just appears out of, if it's in the late season, I'm telling you, that deer was working his, scrape lines or whatever he's doing, but he's looking for does, and he just happened to cycle back through.
Yeah, and so we call it run and gun in the late season. Cover as much ground as you can and hit those pockets like Jay was talking about, because you just never know where those deer are going to pop up again if you do lose a buck that you've been watching.
For sure, guys. Thanks for answering those Coues deer questions. I hope some guys get some value.
Well, good luck
out
to
of
all
that.
of them, because it's
a great time of year.
Just my favorite time of year for sure.
Absolutely love it.
Let's dive into some of these questions I put out on Instagram. And guys that are listening, really appreciate you guys sending in some questions. And feel free, you can always send me a direct message on Instagram, on my Instagram account at jscottoutdoors. You can also always send me an email, jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. And Cortland, I really appreciate you being here. We've had some great podcast episodes where you've answered a lot of people's questions about the Zeiss product. We've got here on the table, I noticed there's a handful of rifle scopes, and you've got, it looks like the Victory RFs there. You've got the Conquest HDs. You've got the spotting scope here. Is this the Harpia?
That's the Harpia.
Yes,
okay.
Harpia.
Yeah, the 95.
So we've got a smattering of optics here from Zeiss, and it's always great to kind of put my hands on them and what have you. I've got to say, before we dive into the questions, I've been using the Victory RF rangefinder, the 10x42. I got that back kind of late spring, early summer, and when I really started using it was at the '06 Ranch. Basically there for the elk season. I used it every day, so for like 45 days. And then I got back and was doing all my bighorn sheep hunts here in Arizona. And I got to be honest, most of the optics that I have are Swarovski optics. One of the first pairs of binos that I ever got was the original 10 by 42 or 10 by 40 classic Zeiss, and just love those binoculars. But I have to say, having the Swarovski EL range and having the Victory RFs, I mean, I've been getting a lot of questions on my Instagram Q&A about what rangefinder I use, and those Victory RFs, they're amazing. I've just hats off to you guys for several things that I really like. Is the fact that the button is on the right side. It's real easy. It's right there where either my flip off finger, my middle finger, or my ring finger is right there and can hit the button. You get really good reaction time. I like the fact that if I was per se left-handed, that I could switch that button to the other side as well, even though I like having it on the right side. And that's one of the complaints that I had with the Swarovski EL range, is the fact that the button is on the left side and it's up in the front. I love how the Zeiss is on the objectives, or the objective side, down lower, right where my right ring finger hits, and that's what I use to hit the range. So from a speed perspective, really enjoying that. From an optical quality standpoint, they've been great. And I love having the capability of having the ballistics that I can enter on my rifle or my client's rifle, and enter it in and be able to call the shots there basically for my hunter, or if I'm hunting, be able to have it projected for my rifle. Yeah. And so I just say hats off. It's a great product. I've really enjoyed using it, and it's kind of opened my eyes to someone that's been really focused. Swarovski Optic has had my business for a long time, but I got to be honest, the RFs, they're fantastic. So what it does to me is it opens my eyes up to other products that are out there, and people ask me what's the best range-finding binocular. For me right now, it's the Victory RF. I
appreciate that, Jay, and that's something that when we designed the RF, we wanted to make it look like a binocular. And I think one of the other key points of this one I point out is the ergonomics of it. You don't have any. It feels good in your hand. Yeah, it looks like a binocular. It feels like a standard binocular. It doesn't have any weird bulges, any weird curves, anything like that. If you pick it up, it handles and feels like a standalone,
and not even just
binocular.
The bulges, but like some of the rangefinders that have come out in recent years, man, that's a big binocular.
Yeah, and they can be very long too.
I like the fact I use the Kuiu Bino harness, and I like the fact that it just slips in there just like a regular bino. I mean, really, if you looked at the RFs, you would not know that they are a range-finding binocular.
I mean, 100%.
But whereas most of the other manufacturers, you can immediately tell there's something going on there, where when you look at the RFs, most people wouldn't even be able to tell that they are RFs. They're a rangefinder.
I agree, and even with it's a dual bridge design where you've got pieces of magnesium actually around the focus wheel in the center of the binocular. And the other thing is too, there's a full weather station in this bino too. So when you're talking about being able to do the ballistics and all that, the binocular has a built-in weather station that gives you real-time weather data, which it's indispensable in the field, whether you're guiding, whether you're hunting for yourself, or whether you have that once-in-a-lifetime sheep hunt. You got to make that shot count. But my biggest push with the RF, and one of the things that impresses me the most, it's a great standalone binocular.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, if you just take the range-finding capability out of it, it's a phenomenal binocular.
Yep.
Well, and the other thing, too, that I get from a customer feedback all the time is that people appreciate the fact that because it's Bluetooth and it's in conjunction with your phone, is that when you anytime you update any of your apps, and Zeiss has an update, it's updating that, and it's as soon as you turn on a link, I mean it's telling your binoculars like, hey, it's not telling them, but it's giving you all the current information. It's already there.
Yep, you're getting a free upgrade basically is what it is.
I think that's the most ingenious part about it too, is that it's real time.
And it's hard to believe when you look at them. It's hard to believe that all of that is going on in what looks like just a regular binocular.
Yep.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah, everything's pretty compact. I mean, we really try to make them again like as ergonomic as we can. And to your point too, where the buttons on the top of the binocular, I've always found that the buttons on most range-finding binos are too close to the eye. So when you push it, you're tending to push the ocular lens down.
Yeah.
With this, and we designed this button and the ranging system a little bit different too. Most range-finding binoculars range on the downstroke, so you got to turn it on with one push, put your circle or your whatever's in there, and then push it again and let it go to get the range. These actually range on the release. So in one motion, you can push it down, get your circle, and release it, and you get your range.
Well, and the thing I like about that, too, is less vibration looking through the binocular.
Yep.
So if I'm on a buck or I'm on a ram, I can hit it and not be bouncing all over the place.
Yep.
If I'm hand-holding, if they're on the tripod, same thing, though. You get that vibration. Cody, you and I talk about vibration within the binocular creates instability. Instability creates you lost the animal, you can't find the animal.
Eye
all of those
fatigue,
things.
everything.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So hats off to you guys on that.
Appreciate that.
Those
Thank
have
you.
been fun using.
And those come in the 842, 1042.
8 and 1054.
Correct.
Yep.
So let's talk about that a little bit for those people out there listening. And what you're saying by that is the ocular lens, you've got 8 and 10s basically,
Yep.
right?
In the magnification range, yeah.
Yeah, and then on the objective side, you've got 42 and 54.
Yep.
Okay.
54.
So I mean that gives a wide variety.
Little bit bigger. I mean, here's the trade-offs in a nutshell. You're going to get a better exit pupil out of a 1054 than you are the 1042. They are a bigger unit. They are heavier, but we've had, you hear people go back and forth, and some of the things that I like about having a little bit heavier binocular or a stouter binocular is that I think they're actually easier to handhold and keep a little steady, which is going to really actually help your ranging abilities.
It will, yeah.
So, and I go back to, okay, what is a guy doing? If you're going to put them on a tripod and you're going to use them, say the RFs on a tripod most of the time, I would almost always, lean myself towards the 54s. If I'm going to handhold them and put them in my chest pouch most of the time, then I'm going to go for the smaller, either 8s or 10 42s. Just personal opinion.
What would you say, guys, is probably the number one seller? Would it be the 8s or would it be the 10s?
It's
the 10s.
1042s.
Yeah, 10s
easy.
for us as a whole. The 1042 is going to be the most popular. It's the better size and weight, right? I mean, the 1042 is something I can carry bow hunting for elk or whitetail hunting or sheep hunting or whatever, and you're not counting ounces. You're not, it's light enough to carry around, but it's small enough to have on your chest.
Right.
Now, to Cody's point on the 54s, I've been using the 54s the last couple months. I absolutely love the 1054 RF for the brightness. You do get a lot more brightness out of the 54 than you do the 42 just because of that objective size.
Right, and so when Cody was saying exit pupil, for the listeners out there that don't really understand that, exit pupil is going to give you that brighter, right? It's going to give you that more light gathering because of a higher exit pupil, correct?
The exit pupil is in millimeters. And so for like the 1042s, it's a 4.2 millimeter. So it's the 42 divided by 10. That gives you 4.2. If I put the binoculars to my eyes and you're looking at me from the side and you can see the light coming through the binocular actually hitting my eye, that band of light basically is 4.2 millimeters wide.
Whereas the 1054 would be 5.4, so it's a whole millimeter.
The 8x42 is going to be 6, and so that so on.
Well, and that comes into play more in lower light situations too. I mean, when it's really bright and sunny, your pupils are gigantic. Your pupils your pupils shrink when it's sunny, and at low light, your pupils tend to expand. So in lower light, the more light you can actually transfer and hit in your eye, the brighter the image is going to be. So
I would think a lot of your European clientele are going to go more with like a 1054 or even an 8x42 because a lot of the hunting is done at night, right?
A lot at night or really thick really thick forest cover. Yeah.
Right, so it's they need as much light as they possibly can,
Yes.
whereas us guys out here in the Southwest in Arizona, typically light isn't as big of an issue. Sure, it's an issue,
Yeah.
but when you're talking about guys that are, shooting Russian boar at night, with illuminated reticles and all that kind of thing, I mean, that's just how
Yeah,
they do it.
absolutely, yeah.
That they need to gather as much light as they possibly can, and that's where exit pupil is going to come in big time, as
Yes,
well as field
yeah.
of view.
Absolutely, and field of view is the key there too, because at night or in thick cover or whatever, the more light you can get transferred through the binocular to your eye, and the wider field of view you're going to have a better chance of seeing the animals in the situations that they're hunting. Where, like to your point, we don't have that much of an issue here, but in those last 30 minutes, in that first 30 minutes, everybody talks about that twilight hour. That's where your field of view and your light gathering can really be
huge.
noticeable.
All right. Any plans for 12 by 50 binos in the near future? And we've gotten, I'll add, we've gotten several of these questions. So
Okay.
there's definitely people out there that are asking about the 1250s.
Okay. Nothing I can confirm nor deny at this point. I know that it is a big. We actually get calls for it all the time as well. So
from a salesperson's standpoint, we've talked and asked, and it's been one of those things that we've wanted for a very long time. The nice thing about it is that we have a 1054 frame. It'd be really cool to go 1254 on it. Just throwing that out there, a little
Yeah.
suggestion. Aren't you going back east next week?
I'll run that up the flagpole.
Yeah, tell Barton to get the fuel the jets and get over to Europe and get it done.
I would assume the Germans are just as tight-lipped as the Austrians.
Oh,
Yes, they tend to be. Yeah.
So a lot of those things are, all of a sudden, they just pop up on the radar that
Sometimes
they take the feedback and all of a sudden it just pops out.
Sometimes that is the way it happens.
well,
yeah.
and I think look, I mean, they're always concerned about units sold, and I mean, I know we have to always ask the big questions, but and maybe the buyers, or I should say the consumers, sometimes they think, oh, well, just throw the lenses and get
It's
the
not
power.
that easy.
No,
I mean,
it never is.
I mean, sometimes that means it's like a whole nother production line, or
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and some of these projects take years to do, and so I would absolutely love a 1254. I think there's a place for it. And again, what Jay and myself, and I know Cortland, we've talked about it a number of times. The best part about that is that if they'll come out with it, I just love the fact that we're having more choice.
Yeah,
as a consumer.
absolutely.
As a consumer, we want to give them the choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Got a question here. I have a Slick 634. I have the Sure VA5. Okay, that's a good start.
Yep.
Swaro 95. Obviously, we're talking about Zeiss here, but we're going to answer the question. Do you add weight to stabilize, and how? Dry bag rock.
Dry bag raw. I mean,
So they want something hanging off.
Yeah, but you can even if you don't have those, put both hands around the trundle and lean onto the tripod a little bit. And I have actually seen a guy take a piece of rope, like a loop, and he puts it around the trundle, comes underneath his boot, like
Pulls it down.
and literally
Yeah.
holds onto it and like just kind of pulls it and wraps it around his boot, and with the weight of his foot, he can put tension on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've seen crazy things, but that is, yes, to add weight is good. And generally speaking, now if your tripod is not designed to handle that load and you're putting too much weight on it, you're going to go backwards. You're going to make it
it's going
worse.
to destabilize the platform.
Well, one of the things I discourage people from doing is touching the tripod. So
I would agree.
I would say that to answer this person's question, widen your tripod legs out, shorten your tripod legs, get as close to the ground as you possibly can.
Yep.
Take all the stuff off of the spotting scope that the wind might be blowing or what have you. Make sure that the adaptation, the part that's attached to the tripod is good and secure and tight. Get as low as you can.
Yep.
Get, if there's any breeze or wind, get on the downside where the basically your setup is getting blown and moved as little as possible. Get as low to the ground as you can. And I would say don't touch it unless you have to.
Well, and look, I mean, and Jay, that's a great point. And you know, I know we talk about guys standing up, and I field these questions every day. And guys are like, well, you know, my product, you know, it's shaking. And I'm like, well, okay, well, tell me about your setup. And the first, you know, I mean, a lot of the times, well, you know, I'm standing there and I'm like, well, okay, let's just break this down and go back right through what you just went through, Jay.
Are you going to get me fired up again?
Yeah, well, I think I'm fired up, but it's true. You've got to really think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is get close to the ground, shorten the legs up, take the you know, put the rigidity back in.
Bring
them.
the center post extension down.
You know,
don't extend it out.
Yeah, I think that's one thing people overlook a lot is they got that center post extension, so they just want to have it all the way up, and that's your most unstable part of the tripod.
Absolutely.
So,
and I know there's times when a center post extension, like on my tripods, I have the extended center post extension, but I very rarely use it. There are times when I'm in sagebrush or up on where I'm running and gunning and I'm carrying the tripod over my shoulder and I'm just looking and looking and looking and I've got to get as high as I can and peek over the brush. Yes, but guys, if you want to become a better glasser, if you want to see more game, stop using the center post extension. Pretend it's not even there.
Yep.
Yeah, I would rather see you extend the legs before you start extending the center post extension.
Could not agree more.
I see guys and they shorten their legs up, but they're sitting there and they raise the center post and it's literally raised up like 18 or 20 inches. And, I mean, that's completely unstable. I'm going to get off on a tangent. Let's jump to any plans for Zeiss to make a new set of 15 by 56 binos. Zeiss Victory 15s, ?
That's another one we've asked for a very long time.
Because explain what Zeiss has now in the 15 category.
Well, yeah, Cortland, if you want to.
Our 1556 in our Conquest, it's not our top tier glass. Okay, I mean we have our like our SFs or our RF that use our highest end glass. So we did that to price them more competitively in the marketplace, right? I mean there's what 3 or 4 good brands of 15 power binoculars. We wanted to price these low or very, very near our competition.
And
it's a good bino.
And it's a great bino.
Great binocular.
And I'll look. I've been very fortunate over my career to be around some incredible people and be in some really cool places and in meetings. I was in the meeting where this started, where the 1556 Conquest HD started. I was in the meeting with the engineers, with the salespeople, and all the people at Zeiss, and we were able to sit down and tell them what we wanted, tell them what we thought was important and why, and that was a really interesting conversation because their idea and our idea sometimes were completely like 180 degrees apart. I mean, completely separate. And when it came down to it, the plan was to do it on the Conquest, and backing up exactly what you said, the whole reason behind it is because when it came down to it, they wanted to know units sold.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look, if you're a company where we've all been in business, it at some point
the idea is to make
the idea is to make a profit and be able to get that out to the customer and the production lines and everything in there. So it was a good fit for them to do the Conquest. It was appropriate. It was. I'm going to contend because I've been a Zeiss fan forever, and I cut my teeth on Oceana 1556s, which were Doctors, which and then my next set was a set of 1560 Zeiss, blah blah blah, and so I loved that product, and I always thought that. Man, if they would just build another 15, even like in the old body style, and put the best glass in it, because that poroprism would be so incredibly bright, and you'd have like the best 15 in the world. Well, they have the platform and the glass with that shot glass and I mean, I'd love to see their highest end, glass in a 15. I think it would be incredible.
From a guy that uses 15s a lot, I'd love to see it too. And unfortunately, that one's above me. And
well, you're going back there next week, right? So you
I will
make
be.
that
I am
happen.
going back next week.
Well, I would argue too, maybe
Note
some
to
of the
self,
guys
call
at Zeiss
Barton.
that are listening, from my perspective, like the old school Zeiss 15 by 60, they were like the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
They were the best of the best. They were the thing that started this whole 15 revolution.
And everything was compared to them.
Everything. They were the top.
They
were
set
the pinnacle.
They set the bar.
They set the bar. So I don't see, from a consumer's perspective, I don't see like, why not go back and push that bar even higher and be like, all right, you guys that have been making 15s, we're going to take the top spot back. We're the grandfather of this. You guys all started these 15s because of us. From a consumer's perspective, I'd love to see Zeiss go back and say, you know what? You guys are all imposters. We're going to take the top spot back on the 15 category. And I think they could do it.
I would love it, to be honest with you. I really would. And if I could snap my fingers and do it today, I'd say let's roll with it.
I wish it was my original idea, but it wasn't. And I will tell you flat out that I was actually in a meeting and heard somebody saying it was a ballsy comment, and I loved every second of it. But I really wanted to see them come out with the old style body Zeiss, the Poro Prism 1560 Zeiss. Just put all new glass in it. Just put the new glass in it.
Well, I will say...
Personally, I'm just telling you, I don't care about the weight.
Cool.
Because here's the thing. What most people don't realize, a Poro Prism basically allows light to your eye more efficiently than a roof prism does. It's got less bends in the light. Mm-hmm. So if you added that with all the new coatings and all the new... technology, I can't even imagine how bright they would be. Also, maybe an engineer would correct me on this, or maybe somebody who's way more, knowledgeable than I. They're also a wider field of view.
Yeah, usually Poro Prisms are a wider field of view.
Typically speaking, they're a wider... So if you told me that you could take a 15 with the latest and greatest glass, even if it was heavier, if I knew that I was getting a benefit out of it, brighter, wider field of view, done.
Well, and you typically run a larger objective lens than a Poro Prism.
Absolutely. Well, it's a true 60.
It is. It could be a true
60.
It's
a true 60.
You get an absolute 4mm exit pupil out of it, which would be amazing.
Okay, I'm calling Barton.
Okay, next question. How do I get turrets built for a Zeiss scope from the mid-2000s?
So Kenton Industries actually cuts turrets for pretty much every aftoscope we've manufactured that has replaceable turrets. Okay. So just get a hold of Kenton, and they can walk you through the process.
And those guys they're top notch.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. They cut all of our turrets, and they do an absolutely amazing job.
I'm not saying never, but of all the people I've helped with scopes and whatnot through the years, I've literally almost never heard of a issue with their turrets.
Yeah, they do a good job.
They do a great job doing it.
We got this question, I believe, last time. Any chance of straight spotters? Love the spotters. Any chance of straight?
The one thing we keep talking about the new product, and one thing that I'll say, I can't speak too much about new product. We do, there's always stuff in the works, right? But I can't speak to specifics on really anything at this point. But I will say we've got an incredible team of product designers and product engineers that we're always looking at upgrading stuff, moving stuff around, adding items, and getting rid of items that aren't as popular. So, this time of year is always tough because everybody does product releases at the first year or, mid-spring. So it's real hard for me to really say what's coming. But just keep an eye out. We're definitely not going anywhere. We're the oldest optics manufacturer in the world. There's always going to be new stuff coming. So,
next question: $1,000 Bino shout out, smiley face. Zeiss Conquest versus others in that price range.
I'll let Cody speak to specifics. I'll just say that our Conquest HD right at $1,000 for the 1042. To me, this is one of the best bangs for the buck in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, when you talk about the older Vortex Razor HDs, the new UHDs, the Conquests. What am I missing in there? There's the
Loophole.
No, yeah, the Loophole BX5s.
BX5s.
I mean, so look, there's a lot of glass in that platform in that price range, and I would always defer someone and look, when it really comes down to it, it doesn't matter what I say. I mean, I can give you opinions, I can give you specs, I can give you all the things to look for, but go put your eyes behind them, because that's really what matters. Look, I'll flat out tell you that those 10-42 sit right there absolutely perform. Used them in the field, love them, have no questions recommending them. But we all know that there's certain situations where a guy's like, man, I kind of like the way that these feel and look better than these. Well, okay. Again, it comes back to the consumer and the choice thing.
Yeah.
They're well built. They stand up to the test of time. We've been selling them now for quite a few years. They've got the 5-year no fault warranty. I mean, I don't think they need to use the warranty all the time with it, to be honest with you.
And that's when I saw a
they're
bunch
tough.
of these because they're a rugged binocular. Like, I just threw them on the floor.
Yeah, he just threw them on the floor.
I cringed when I saw you do that.
They're really a rugged binocular. And I'll say, the one kickback we get, and I'll be totally honest, is our eye cups. And I dropped these in my driveway and broke the eye cup on the way over here this morning, okay? But the nice thing about having eye cups that do break is the eye cup takes the shock of a fall instead of the tube, instead of the lens,
Correct.
instead of the piece of glass. I would rather you call Zeiss in 10 years and have to send you a pair of eye cups than send your binocular back in because you dinged an objective or chipped an ocular lens.
Right.
So having replaceable eye cups and parts available is a big deal.
Let's talk about that just for a second. It's another question that pops up. So you've got Zeiss is based in Germany.
Yes, sir.
But you guys have a U.S. plant, let's call it, or what do you call it?
Yeah, so our sales headquarters are based in New York, and we actually have a warranty factory in Hebron, Kentucky.
Okay.
So if anybody in the U.S. sends a Zeiss product in for a warranty or any concerns, it's going to go to Kentucky and get handled there.
Okay.
There are some items that we do still have to send back to Germany if they do require internal repair, but the majority of the stuff's handled in-house in Kentucky. Next
question. Will $700 extra for the Swarovski SLC really be that much better than the $1,000 Zeiss Conquest?
They must be talking about the 10.
Oh, they've got to be. Yeah,
Yeah,
they've got to be
SLCs.
talking 1042s. Yeah. Again, I think I think it's important to put your eyes behind them. Look, I mean, I'm an optics snob. I always go for what treats me best. And I am not going to sit here and tell you that I don't like the SLCs because I love them. I think they're one of the best pieces of glass on the market. Obviously,
but $700
well,
is $700.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now it's officially it's $15.99, so that guy knows, just in case. So it's like a $600 separation. I get it, and again, I think, and this goes back to answering that question that we get so much. It's probably the most common question: is it really worth that money? I don't know. Is it?
Put your eyes to it.
How much time do you spend behind them? That's one question I would ask. Are you going to get that money out of it? Because here's the deal. If I'm using the 10-42, Conquest and he's using the Zeiss, okay, partner, I'll saddle up and go side.
What do you mean the Zeiss?
Well, I mean the
SLCs.
I'm sorry, the SLCs, and I'm using the Zeiss. I'll go toe to toe with you. You're not going to outglass me. I'm not trying to be cocky. That it's you're taking smaller intangibles and fitting it to somebody's eyes in what they see. I can't always answer that for a guy.
Well, one thing I'd like to add is let's talk about real fast. What shows, Cody, are you going to be at? And what shows are you going to be at, Cortland? Because I think it's important when you talk about guys getting their hands on the product and looking through them. let's talk a little bit about the shows.
Okay.
Go Hunt will be represented at Sheep Show, Wild Sheep Show
Okay.
in Reno. I think that's January 16th through the 19th, of which, by the way, I think the Zeiss booth I just noticed yesterday
We're
is
across the aisle.
We are literally across the aisle, so we're good to go there. You can come to my booth or go to Zeiss, or we can walk back and forth, and I can tell you all about stuff. And then we will also be at Western Hunter Conservation Expo in Salt Lake City, and I believe the dates on that is February 7th.
No, it's like the
No, it's
13th.
the
Oh, no,
16th
yeah,
to the
it's
16th.
13. You're right. It's 13 to 16.
Thursday to Sunday, right?
Yeah, it's a 4-day.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will be there, and I think Zeiss is also there on that
we
one
will,
too.
yeah. So I will actually be at the ATA show first. It's the 9th of January in Indianapolis. So any archers out there going to be at ATA, come see me. Zeiss will have a booth there. I will be at Sheep Show as well in Reno.
Oh, good.
I will not be at the Western Hunting Conservation Expo, but we will have a booth there staffed with a bunch of our territory account managers as well.
Awesome.
So,
Good. All right, next question.
Who's going to be there?
Angelo, or no, you know what? Barton's going to be there.
Nice.
We've got Corbin Shell will be there as well.
Cool. Good.
So yeah, we'll have
All
a
right,
good crew.
Looking
Real good
forward
crew.
to it.
Are there any plans to add illumination to the MOA reticles for the V6 line?
That's going to be a Cortland question.
Well, again, it's hard for me to talk about new product coming for next year. So just keep your eyes on the V6 line.
But we're only about 2 weeks away from next year.
I think this might be a little bigger audience than we can talk about yet. So.
Okay, let's see. Another one about wanting the 15 by 56 in the HT Victory line. How did Cortland grow such an amazing beard? Kudos.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
know,
I couldn't
Cortland,
grow
it
that
really-
in 5 years.
It really has come in nice.
But it's
appreciate
nothing like yours.
Oh, mine's it's special.
Cody's
It's
is
special.
That's-
Well, you are kind
well,
of special, Cody.
it's Megan, Ty, Tanner, and Gracie. It's all gray and
Yeah.
Get a little salt in there.
oh, buddy, hey, it's
think
what it'll
I
do.
know the feeling, my friend. I know the feeling.
Okay, next
I
question.
noticed. Hey, Cortland's over here. Don't think that he doesn't have a little few little guys
there's
popping
a little,
through.
little salt and pepper in there.
Next question. Would love more general information on the V4 rifle scopes. And I think with that, I think the next question I've got here is we're going to talk about the difference between the V4 and the V6. But let's hit the V4 rifle scopes
Cortland.
first.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty passionate about the V4. I think this is probably one of the products I use the most besides the RF. Our V4 series is all 30 millimeter tubes. Okay, and it's we call it the V4 because it's a 4 times magnified scope. So we do them in a 6 to 24, a 4 to 16, a 3 to 12. We used to make a 1 to 4 as well, where we still have a few of those around. But we designed this as a mid-tier price point. When I say mid-tier price point, you guys know rifle scope prices can go from $39 to $5,000.
Yep.
So these are made to retail anywhere from $699 to $1,199, so $600 to $1,200 price range. We try to keep it approachable for most people by still providing a top tier experience in that price point. So all 30 millimeter tubes. The one benefit to the V4 is all of our V4 series scopes are capped for windage. They have a capped windage turret and an exposed elevation turret. We designed that as in the mindset that it's going to be used as a long range hunting scope. Okay, so most long range hunters, most guys in a hunting situation are ever going to dial their windage. So having an uncapped turret that might get bumped, might get moved when you're throwing it in and out of a case or a scabbard if you're on a horse, that's one thing that we wanted to alleviate, so we capped that turret. The other benefit is you have about 80 minutes of travel in the V4 series scopes. So anybody that's familiar with ballistics, 80 minutes is a ton. I mean, if you want to talk about the hottest cartridge, the 6.5 Creedmoor, everybody raves about it. What do you need from 100 yards zero to 1,000 yards is only, I may be wrong in this, but you should have at least twice the amount of travel you need to get that cartridge out to 1,000 yards. So in any configuration, you should have plenty of travel in the scope to dial that turret out to a reasonable yardage for you to shoot.
And how many is on each revolution on that?
It's a 20 MOA turret, so you have 20 minutes per revolution. That helps too for the guys that are dialing a lot. You don't have to dial as much. You just get more travel per revolution. It's a solid scope. We've got several different reticle options. We actually just dropped a new reticle. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. But we call it our T20 thin line reticle in the 6-24, and we have a T30 in our 4-16. And it gives the guy that doesn't always want to dial his turret but wants to shoot off the reticle enough holdover values for windage and elevation to make a shot. The T20, actually that's what I shot my coos deer with this year, and I shot that buck at 565 with this reticle, and this one is illuminated. And that's the first time I've ever turned the illumination on a rifle scope to shoot an animal. And we were shooting uphill into the sun, and having that illumination on just helped me track with the glare I was getting just because of the position of the shot, helped me track where I needed to put the crosshair. I think they're an incredible value for the money. They're also a very lightweight scope. The 6-24 illuminated runs about 24.5 ounces. So if you're looking to build a true Western hunting rifle, you can get enough power to make those long range shots without sacrificing a bunch of weight.
Yep.
So
Good stuff. Talk about the differences between the V4 and the V6.
The V4 and the V6, the V6 is going to go from a 4 times magnified. The V6 is going to be a 6 times magnified. So we make a 3-18 and a 5-30 and a 1-6 in the V6 series. The biggest difference is the glass quality. You go from, and the other thing I'll point out is our V4s are actually made in Japan. Okay, these are made with glass that we provide, but they are made in Japan.
Assembled in Japan.
Assembled in Japan, yes, sir. Yeah. The V6 is a 100% manufactured in Germany product. So a little bit higher end tolerances. We use a little bit different components in our turret systems, but realistically, the ergonomics and how they handle is virtually the same. The biggest difference in the two is going to be the glass quality. The V6 is going up to our top tier glass, our FL glass. It's the highest end glass package we offer in a rifle scope. We actually have one series of rifle scope above the V6 called the V8. Those are probably the brightest hunting scopes in existence right now. And the V6 and the V8 use virtually the same glass. So you're going from about a $1,200 price point on the 6-24 V4 to a $2,000 price point on the 5-30 V6. And the biggest difference there is the glass quality, is the increase in price. I will say, just my personal opinion, that 3-18 V6 is my favorite rifle scope that I've ever shot. Great power range, good turrets, unbelievable glass, and it's got 103 minutes of travel. So the guy that really wants to go out and stretch his cartridge out, the V6 is a good option.
Good stuff. And talk about the new reticles you touched on a little bit in the V4. You talked about I think it was the T20.
Yeah, the T20 and the T30. In the 4-16, we do the T30 reticle, and it's a Christmas tree style reticle, but it's very thin. So what we incorporated is
it's just dots.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. The center crosshair is still a solid crosshair, but we have a floating aiming point in the middle. So the center of your crosshair is actually floating, where you actually it's a full window around that reticle. It's very small. It's only 1 MOA. But the Christmas tree allows you to have, in the 4-16, it gives you 30 minutes by, I believe it's 15 minutes of windage on each side of your vertical crosshair. So if you have a guy that likes, like my dad loves shooting off his reticle. If you have a guy that doesn't want to dial his turret, doesn't want to mess with adjusting anything on the scope, but you just want to hold over and make your shot, that's where we really design these. The other application for it is too, if like I like to target shoot with my hunting rifles. I like to go out and hit steel with them.
Right.
With this style of reticle, you can actually call your windage shots if you do miss your target, or if you're trying to engage a small target, like prairie dogs always come to mind, right? Because they're very small. We made the dots in these two reticles, the windage and elevation dots, very small. Not too small that we're not usable, but you're not covering up your target when you're trying to shoot a smaller target at distance.
It's really important to point out that, like, I normally like very clean reticles. You and I have had that conversation many times. I was not offended. It just did not bother me. It's so fine and so, the reference points of the tree. It's just not overwhelming. It's not too busy, is what I want to tell. And I know people are going to ask, and I think that's the best thing that can be taken from it. Is I never once have looked at it and thought, man, that's just too much going on.
Yeah, when you see reticles like this that have everybody calls them the Christmas tree style, right? Because they start skinny at the top and go wider to give you those reference for your windage. You see a lot of those reticles and they become very, very, what you said is busy, right? Busy. It covers up a lot of your target. It covers up a lot of what you're looking at. The benefit to this is we call it a thin line. That's our vernacular for it.
I really like this. What is this?
That's the 6 to 24 T20.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's very usable, and it crosses over very well from a target scope to a hunting scope without any hassle, without any headache. So,
good stuff. Next question. Go ahead, Cody.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, I just was. You covered it.
And we do have high-res images of this on our website, so anybody that's curious about looking at that route can go to zeisshunting.com and check it out.
Great. Why is the Gavia spotter from Japan? I think you just referenced that.
Yep. So we do manufacturing stuff in Japan. That is to help us keep those price points where they need to be, right?
From an assemblage standpoint.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. So assembled in Japan, the Gavia, it's our Conquest series. So it's the same kind of series, mid-tier glass. Okay. It's not our low-end glass, but it's not our SF glass like we put in our Harpia spotting scopes. But made in Japan, I mean, if you really want to get down to it, the Japanese manufacturing and the Japanese facilities are second to none in the world as far as what they can do and what they produce.
Incredibly efficient.
So in the days of seeing a scope or a binocular or spotting scope made in Japan and kind of thinking down about it, I think are gone.
Well, I mean, and if you really want to get down to it, guys, that's what made all this glass that wasn't available years ago available.
Absolutely.
From a price point perspective?
I mean, from a price point, everything. Yep. That literally is what has pushed this ceiling. Yes. I mean, you still have the big three, and that's great, and that high end glass. But if we wouldn't have all the choices we have today if it weren't for the Japan and manufacturing that goes on there, it just wouldn't have happened.
Well, and the other thing too is Zeiss owns 100% of the shares of Shot Glass Company, right? So Shot Glass Company is the largest manufacturer of optical glass in the world.
Yep.
So
copiers.
Yeah.
It came from copiers,
and we make glass for pretty much every industry. So we're able to sell the glass that or one of our subsidiaries produces to manufacture that scope, and we're just manufacturing in Japan. And the other benefit is it's a shorter scope than most 85s, and it's very, very tough.
Are the Zeiss Victory SFs less durable than the Swaro ELs? I know they're a little lighter, thanks.
Yeah, I think they're running about an ounce lighter.
I think it is an ounce.
Right off my memory serves me right.
It's not much.
That's a magnesium housed body. It's a very, very durable binocular. I can't say that it's going to be any more durable, less durable than a Swarovski. I've never put
very similar. You're saying?
Yeah, well, very, very similar.
I mean, just from a standpoint of hearing, customer have issues in terms of like repairs, I would tell you that both of them are tougher than nails.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you just don't hear about a lot of complaints.
So, guys, I want to point out my friend sitting right next to me, Cody Nelson, is the optics manager at Go Hunt, the gear shop. And if you guys have any optical needs at all, if you want to buy binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, you want to talk glassing, tripods, anything about what we're discussing today, you can reach out to him at 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. You can also see him at the shows that he listed. You can also send him an email. He gets those emails directly at optics@gohunt.com. Guys, the next question here, are they discontinuing the Z600 reticle, best hunting reticle system in the game?
We actually did discontinue the Z6. The Z600 was in our HD5 or Conquest HD5, and that was the precursor to the V4. So when we upgraded from the HD5 was a 1-inch tube, we went to a 30-millimeter tube. In the V4, we did upgrade the reticles and make it more of a dialable system instead of just a reticle system.
I think, just a side note there. The Z6, Z8, and what was it, Z1000 reticles, and all of the and by the way, those are. That's no different than the BDC reticle and the vortexes and all the different bullet drop compensating style reticles. All those were incredibly popular before, and I'll say this, look, it took me 30 years to become comfortable with turning my turrets, and doing that. So I would tell you that that bullet drop compensator style reticles, holdover reticles, if you will, like I remember when the Full Field 2 came out and it just had the two little lines, and the Zeiss had their LR dots. And so, or no, I'm sorry, not Zeiss, Loophole came out with their little LR. I don't want to ever offend the guy that asked that question or whoever did, but it's not that it's old way of thinking. It just that like everybody has kind of moved on to the turrets and and having all your ballistic information.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's great, but there's a lot of people that have gone past that, and I liked those reticles, and they were clean reticles.
It works great.
So maybe you can tell him which ones would kind of fit him now.
So going from like the Z600 reticle, and that the whole premise behind those scopes was when you plugged your ballistic information into our ballistic calculator, it would actually tell you what power to put your rifle scope on to put those yardage or those dots, or actually it was line holdovers, to see what those were at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 600. So you would adjust the power on the scope instead of adjusting the turret. The benefit of going to like a V4 and one of the newer style reticles is you still have that usability of shooting off your reticle and have all of your drop if you don't want to dial a turret, but you can keep it at whatever power you want to shoot at instead of whatever power we're telling you to put it at to get those your subtensions exactly right for 1 to 600. So the V4 just gives you a little bit more freedom on how you want to shoot versus the Z600. And I mean, honestly, from those scopes to the new ones, these are a brighter scope and have just a few more features to make them a little more user-friendly.
Yep.
Next question. What are some differences that you see in the 15x56 Zeiss compared to the Swarovski 15x56?
Cody, you want to tackle that one?
Well, I mean, look, here and again, I don't want to sound like a rinse, wash, repeat answer, but, when you start comparing those pieces of glass, it kind of comes down to what does that guy see, out of his eyes. I have used extensively pretty much all the 15s out there at one time or another, and had the fortune to put them all together at one time and look, at game in the field. The Zeiss is an incredibly good piece of glass. My personal preference, I normally, I gravitate towards the Swarovski. I feel it's a little bit brighter. There's, a little bit wider field of view. And some of it's like a perceived field of view. I do believe that they're both using Abbey Koenigs. Mm-hmm. So I think really what you're seeing is it looks very similar. I will tell you that the Swarovskis are a little bit shorter. I can't remember the exact weights, but it's
2 ounces.
It's maybe 2 ounces.
Yeah, it's
so,
a lot.
Again, I think a guy really has to answer for himself. What does he want? What does he see when he looks through them? How much does he use them to make that, to make that $600 or, whatever the difference is? What is it? I mean, what is he get that much value out of it? Because maybe if he only hunts once a year and this is what he wants to spend, do that.
Well, let's face it. I mean, with $600, $700, $800, you could buy a new rifle.
Well,
you could buy another.
You could buy a rangefinder. You could do.
Buy, there's things. So.
Yeah, it's always tough to put those things into perspective for people. And look, I will always help somebody spend their money, and I will help them spend it wisely too.
Yeah. Hey.
So, but you have guys that walk in, or call or whatever, and they go, hey, they just buy something because somebody told them to buy something, not because of what they actually see.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate. I've actually used the 1556 Conquest for the last 7 years, I think. Mm-hmm. Even before I was working with Zeiss, I was using a pair of Conquest 15s, and I've never felt handicapped in the field.
Yeah, I mean,
with a pair on a tripod.
And I think it comes back to what I was telling you earlier. Like if I'm using the SLC 10s and you're using I think you're still both going to find deer. It's just, I think it comes down to how do they focus for you? How, what does it look like when you're actually in the field? Do you like the eye cups in, eye cups out? Do you like the eye cups at all? I mean, I think you have to answer all those things for yourself.
Yeah. Ergonomics and comfort go a long way, especially when you're sitting behind them for a long
Here's the
time.
beautiful thing. They're both tripod mountable. They're, you can put studs in them. You can.
And the Zeiss comes with one.
The Zeiss does come with one. Swarovski makes their own, that you have to buy as a separate piece. So there's just a lot of things that go into that, I think a guy really just has to go put the glass to his own eyes and to the best of his ability, kind of figure out what works for him.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Got a question here. Which V4 for hunting, 300 Win Mag, Browning X-Bolt, weight a concern, practice out to 1,000 yards?
I would look at the 4-16 by 44 is going to be your
straight
lightest
up.
weight option. If you don't mind 3.5 more ounces, the 624, especially if you're going to go out to 1,000 yards, would probably be a consideration for me. But that 4-16 44 is it's one of the lightest scopes in its class with the travel and the turret and the reticle options that are available.
Info and reviews on the Dialite 18 by 45 by 65 spotter.
So the Dialite is actually one of the oldest products in our lineup right now. It's the only straight spotting scope we currently produce, and we always call it our sheep hunter scope. It is. I don't have one here today to show you, but it's a fairly long spotting scope, and it's a little bit unique. It's got a very heavy armored body, and the focus ring is actually the ring around the objective lens. So the idea behind it is if you're not necessarily in a position, especially when you're doing a lot of high alpine sheep hunting, you may not be able to throw a tripod up very easy, but you can lay this over your pack at 18 power and really get that focus where you need it to be to count that growth ring or whatever. It is a lighter weight scope, and it's fairly low profile, so it fits in a pack really, really well.
I would actually, I'd liken it to the old classics.
Yeah, very similar.
And
very, very similar.
We didn't have it when the classics were around, but I kind of think it's kind of a throwback to the classics. It's really, it's good quality.
Yeah.
I've used it. I think it's a good piece of glass. Yeah, I mean, you put it on a tripod, and I think it's a real word.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a doer. It'll work.
When it's been around this long for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a solid performer and still works.
I agree.
So.
We've got a question here. Field versus home care. Do we have to buy branded stuff? Are all wipes created equal?
So I will tell you that all
Did
wipes
we just
are not
move to the home
created
show?
equal.
I'm sorry.
Field care, nothing makes me cringe more than when I see a guy take his T-shirt and wipe off his rifle scope lens or his binocular lens.
No, I'm sorry.
And,
I gotta one up you on that deal.
Oh, yeah?
The worst is watching somebody take a wool glove
Oh, yeah,
and just take the finger.
and go.
And lick the glass, and then I've seen that one a couple times. I just was like, oh my god.
So the best way I can answer that question is buy something that's made to clean optical glass, whether it's name brand, whether it's not name brand. But personally, I would rather put a little bit of money into the products I use to care for what I already dropped a bunch of money in to purchase. Zeiss makes this is me being very arrogant about this, but we make the best throwaway wipe made. It's a paper wipe with pre-moistened solution. It's
You
like
see them everywhere.
Yeah, it's like a hand towelette, right? Mm-hmm. You can literally buy 50 of them for a couple dollars, and that'll last you a season. So spend a couple bucks on something that's going to help you clean your glass, for one, but it's not going to degrade your glass over time, too. What a lot of cleaning solutions do, especially if they have ammonia in them, they can actually start wearing the coatings off on the edge of on the surface of the glass, which your coatings enhance your visibility, brightness, and everything. So if you're scratching those coatings by using a cotton T-shirt, if you're using a wool glove and licking your lens, you're starting to wear on that glass. And it may not be a noticeable scratch the first time you do it, but repeating, it's going to damage
having
it.
Seen a bunch of different binoculars come in, I mean, instantly what a guy's been cleaning with.
Absolutely.
And I think part of that question too is like, look, when I'm at home, I do clean a little bit. It's more thorough.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit. I always use air. I have a compressor out there, or I use canned air.
Yep.
Or I have a brush. Okay, so I mean, I do whatever I can to remove any debris by those means. If for some reason that we've gotten, water stain or like, and again, I've seen chew spit, I've seen
everything.
food.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it, it's been stuck to it. I've seen it before.
A lot of blood.
Blood. I mean, I've seen a lot of different things, and I would just tell people that if you get stuff that's hard on there, don't go scratching on it.
No.
And what I would try to do is like, that's the stuff I normally leave to when I get back to the truck or when I get home. And what I try to do is I will use a liquid cleaner, and I'll squirt a couple drops, let it set on there, and try to break it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then open up a wipe, and very gently start trying to pull that apart and get away on it. And I think that if you just and I always work in circular motions. I can't stress that enough. If you're just rubbing back, I don't think that works very well. And
there's a lot of cleaning kits you can get to.
Right.
That the main things you can use to clean a lens thoroughly. Right. At home care, I use some sort of a optics brush.
Right.
To get your big particles off your lens. Okay. An air puffer or canned air is great. The only condition with canned air is don't let the liquid get on the glass
in other
surface.
words, and what he's saying
don't tilt the can.
Don't shake it up.
Yeah.
And move the binocular, not the airstream,
Yes.
because I don't really know what that amounts to, but it puts something on the lens that you got to clean off anyway.
Yeah.
So I agree, and that's why I think it was last
Compressors
Christmas.
were great.
My wife bought me one of those little DeWalt small compressors. It sits on my shelf. I use that for more stuff now than I can possibly imagine.
And honestly, we build all these binoculars to be waterproof. So if you have a binocular that you've been coos hunting or sheep hunting for a couple weeks and it's dusty and dirty, don't be afraid to walk over to the faucet and hose it off.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt it. So hose it off, get the dust off, and then go back through and clean your lenses. So these are made to be a very high precision instrument, right? But they're also made to be used. So don't be afraid to use them. We wear them in the rain all the time, so it's not going to hurt them to rinse them off. But definitely use something that's designed to clean optical lenses. Don't use your T-shirt. Otherwise, Jay will come and slap you.
Well, but even with that being said, like with running water over them, I mean, if it's that bad and they're that dusty, which that happens once in a while, walk outside, take the air compressor, blow the water out of them.
Absolutely.
And then go back and clean the lenses, and I mean, it works out real good.
Yep.
What level of tracking accuracy tests does Zeiss perform on their turret systems?
So our turret systems are designed to track 100% true at our printed MOA adjustment. Okay, so for example, on the V4 rifle scopes, we print an 80 MOA of adjustment. These scopes will actually dial and travel a little bit more than that. But 80 minutes is where we know we have 100% true vertical tracking without any side-to-side deviation. And there's a couple different ways that we do that. It's how we design our turret system. That a lot of companies design them a little bit different, so you don't get quite the accuracy out of it, and you can get a little bit of wandering, or that it just walks as you're dialing up or down. So we do extensive testing on this to make sure it's accurate. That's one thing that Zeiss prides themselves is to make sure that our printed specs on these rifle scopes, you're getting 100% true tracking at those specs.
How does the V6 line compare to the Leupold VX6 HD?
I'll let Cody kind of jump in here in a minute, but I think the VX6 and the V6 are very comparable.
Yep, I 100% agree.
Personally, I think there's a few subtle differences.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll let Cody take that one.
I mean, look, both those scopes, I would say that they kind of made a niche, and that really wasn't being utilized anyway. I mean, you either had to go big and tactical and heavy, and I realize that I guess somebody's definition of what heavy is, but the VX6 is when I first, matter of fact, the VX wasn't really even coming around yet. The VX6 came out first, and we started putting that on longer range rifles because everybody wanted the second
Yep.
The turret.
second revolution.
And that was, and everybody's like, oh, that just, that because what it did was it pushed people away from other scopes and said, okay, now I can get the second full turret.
Yep.
Now I can definitely hit the 1,000-yard range. So, you've got illuminated, you've got the 6 times power. I think the glass is excellent in both. Again, I think at a certain point in time, you're talking about lockable turrets.
Yeah.
They both have lockable, it's different systems.
Yeah. Zero or ballistic stops. Yeah.
I would tell you that I think the V6, if I'm going to say this correctly, I think it's got 75 or 80 millimeter or MOA. I think
the 318, our 318 has 103.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was going to say,
the
because
VX6,
that one, the VX6,
I think they're about 80.
I think it's 80.
75 or 80.
There's one VX5 that has, I think it's 105 too.
I think
so
it is too.
It's close.
Yeah.
So when you start really talking about those scopes, I think they're really similar. I think it kind of comes down to personal choices. The VX6 has the leveling system in it that, you can mount on your scope and you can level it out. So there's just different things or bells and whistles, if you will.
Yeah, there's different accessories for them too.
Right.
It kind of comes back to the whole 15, R15 versus the Swarovski 15. Go look through them. Go see what reticle you like better. Go take them outside. Go look at them in the conditions you're actually going to be shooting them. Make the decision. I can sit here all day long and tell you to buy Zeiss, but I'd rather you go look at Zeiss, compare it to something else, and prove it to yourself.
Yep.
So. Speaking of that, we've got question Gavia versus Harpia, talking about the spotting scopes. I guess first talk about the spotting scope line, talk about each one, and then maybe talk about the differences.
Okay. So we kind of covered the Gavia a little bit earlier. It's our mid price point. They run about $2,000. It's a very short, compact 85 millimeter spotting scope. A lot of bang for the buck. It's actually a very easy spotter to pack around because it's not ultra long. And it's performed very well, and it's very, very robust. So with the Harpia, we've actually upgraded, and this is a totally redesigned spotting scope in the Harpia. We are the only ones at this point, as far as I know, producing a spotting scope with these kind of mechanics in it. So a traditional spotting scope has your power adjustment in your eyepiece, right? So you put an eyepiece on, and it's got 20 to 60, 30 to 60, whatever it's going to be. The Harpia is a little bit different. It's a fixed eyepiece, and our power adjustment is built into the objective lens of the spotting scope. So the whole purpose behind that is it helps us keep a wider field of view, even out to 70 power versus all of our competition. And Jay, you've videoed a lot through a spotting scope. You've done a lot of digiscoping. Anytime, Cody, you have too. Anytime you can increase field of view when you're looking at something but keep your power the same, you're getting benefits of both worlds. You're getting that extra magnification to see the detail, but you're being able to see more in your picture at one time. So the only drawback to the Harpia, this is the 95. We make them in an 85 and a 95. The 95, it's a large scope. It's 69 ounces or something. I may not have that weight quite correct, but it's a heavy spotting scope. But the performance of this with this system it's almost unbeatable.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's a really cool piece of glass.
Yeah, it does, and I got to spend some time with it this fall. I've been nothing but impressed with it to this point. There's some, and I'm not the biggest on angles. I really hope they come out with a straight for my own benefit, but there's no doubt that eyepiece is. They've done something really, really good with that. I really like the way that the whole system functions together. From what is it? I always get the 85 and it's 23 to 7.
23 to 70 on the 95.
95
and 25 to 65
right.
on the 85.
But I just think it does a really good job, and I think absolutely that it's comparable to others in the market. And I think they've absolutely made a name for themselves and put their place right. They put their toe and their foot in the door. Absolutely, and I think it can only get better from this point.
And we are running a special on these right now.
Yep,
so if
we are.
if you guys do buy a Harpia spotting scope, you actually get the eyepiece for free. It's about an $800 savings. So that's one of our fall promotions we're running until the end of the year.
That's phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not taken the 85 out yet. So I'm the 95 I used more. I want to get the 85 because I just to give people a better idea what a smaller unit,
Yeah. And it's not significantly smaller, but it does save 4 or 5 ounces, and it cuts the length of the spotting scope down quite a bit. So.
Yeah. No, I think the focus wheel's good.
Yeah, I didn't mention that.
Yeah, the gear. Yeah, tell them about the gearing on the focus wheel.
It's a geared focus wheel, so it's got a coarse focus and a fine focus built into the same focus wheel. So you get about an eighth of a turn of fine focus as you're focusing. So say you're sitting behind your spotter and you got it on the tripod and you're trying to get it focused on that deer, you can quickly get your rough focus in, and then you have about an eighth of a turn that's just really, really fine focus so you can get that detail.
I have heard, and customers have questioned, I don't want to use the wrong word, but almost like saying like slop. And I'm like, no. That's
refinement.
Exactly. Yeah. It's there for a reason.
They are definitely designed to be. That's your coarse focus to fine focus is the easiest way to explain it. Yeah, play. There you go. It does.
It's just a subtle movement, but that's what they don't realize. And I had to learn it.
Yeah. But once you start using this scope, though, and the beautiful thing about the power on the objective, too, is you can use this all one hand without looking at anything. I can keep my eye behind it. I can adjust my power and my focus with the same hand. So, you're putting less stress on your tripod like we were talking about earlier.
See that.
Absolutely. We were talking about keeping your hands off your tripod as much as you can. When you start getting up into 70 power on a spotter, that's a heck of a lot of magnification to try to keep still. So any movement you can keep off that at any time is going to help you.
It's amazing how free and just easy. Like I'm using one finger. I use the Swarovski 95, and I mean, you got to crank it pretty good. This is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you can. It's true one-hand operation, and the wheels are big enough too that if you're using gloves, you can still operate all the controls without having to take your glove off.
It's good stuff. Guys, I want to give you a chance here in conclusion. If you have any final thoughts, it's always great having both of you on the podcast, and I think the listeners gain a lot of information and knowledge, and they get a lot of value out of both of you. So I want to give you a chance to, if you got any final thoughts, anything that you think we've missed or anything you just want to get out there.
You know, I just, there's a couple things. Hey, Jay, thanks for letting us have this kind of platform, number one. Zeiss, thank you, for having literally the broad, choice of products that, I think that should always be commended. And the thing that I want to impress upon people the most is that I so much appreciate and get flattered with people calling and, wanting to talk and ask questions and it's all awesome. But really, when it comes down to it, I think what I have the most fun at, and I know Cortland does this, and Jay, I know because of what you do on the podcast that you do, but it's fun talking to people and helping them find more game, okay? And it's a passion of mine. But what I mean by all this is that I think it's fun giving other people the knowledge to that they can make those decisions for themselves. Because look, Jay, you could tell me you like this glass and you like this glass, but I'm convinced that if we all go out and sit on the mountain together, not only are we going to have a great time, and we're going to be in the best country in the world, right? But we're going to find game.
Yeah.
And I think when it all comes back to it, you just put your eyes behind stuff to the best of your ability and get out there and make decisions on what you like. And if people will do that and they'll put it on tripods and they'll slow down and they'll search for stuff, they're going to find game. And I'm just happy and I feel fortunate to be able to be in a position that people call and ask my opinion. And I'm more than happy to give it. But I really try to put back on the onus on them is to say, hey, go check this stuff out and see what you like. And it's amazing the response we get back. I know, Jay, you forward me stuff all the time from the podcast, but the emails we get to Go Hunt with people saying, man, I took it out. I was able to kill this. And, all just based on the conversations. And I'm like, that means everything to me. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely.
So just thought I would kind of throw that in there because it really is. It's just what it means to me. And when you call, that's what we're trying to do. And guys, I'm really excited with the shows coming up. I'm really excited. There's some new products that we're putting on that we haven't had. Our assortment keeps getting a little wider, and we were pretty narrow when I first started. And
in the gear shop,
in the optics shop, and with the gear shop too. Everybody just keep your hats on, because there's a lot of stuff coming for this coming year that are new, and Brian Campos and his team of guys over there are just absolutely crushing it. And there's going to be some stuff on there that is like categories that were never there before, that people are going to go, oh, man, think this is awesome. So there's a lot of stuff coming, and I'm getting ready to put a bunch of stuff on, for new selections as far as reticles and things that we haven't had, and different kind of binoculars. And so just keep checking the website, looking for the new stuff. And I'm just really excited to be able to do this. So Jay, thank you for giving us that platform, because it's incredible.
Well, good.
Awesome. Yeah, and I appreciate you guys having me back on. It's always a good time to sit down and discuss all this stuff. I'm kind of an optics nerd, so I really get into using this stuff and selling it. And kind of the same thing what Cody was saying. You get that feedback from a customer that's just excited because you helped them pick the right piece of gear for them. That's what makes it worth it at the end of the day. One thing I'll throw out there too, and I'm not going to throw a sales pitch out, but I see a lot of emphasis on guys buying good binoculars, which is great. I see rifle scopes being a secondary function of optics. And Cody, I'm sure you see that every day too.
Absolutely.
So I just encourage guys to go out and start exploring options to upgrade your rifle scope if you've been using that scope for a long time, or get something with the features that makes it a little more usable. It's nice to fine game, but it's always better when you can harvest them cleanly too. So I just encourage everybody just to keep trying to better your equipment, because you have a better experience in the field.
I think that's great advice there. Guys, I really appreciate both of you coming on. To the listeners, I really appreciate the loyal support that you give this podcast. I want to give a quick shout out. I've already talked about Go Hunt. I've talked about the optics department. My friend Cody Nelson, 20 plus years. I was in his wedding. We've been great friends for a long time. It's probably closer to 25 years now. We're getting older every day. Guys, reach out to Cody, 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. Also, you can send him an email. Now, if you call him on the phone, he's going to pick up that phone. If you email him, he's going to get those emails. Email him at optics@gohunt.com. Also, I'm going to throw out here and blow up his cell phone. If you need to text him, if it's after hours, if you want to call him, if you want to talk to him, call him 602-399-3699. Truly, every single day I get a text message or a email or a direct message on Instagram how Cody has helped someone get better. Please use him as a resource. He is very genuine, and he does a great job at what he does. I also want to thank the other sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. KUIU is the gear that I wear on all my hunts. I've been wearing it since the end of 2010, beginning of 2011. Best ultralight hunting gear on the market. Go to KUIU.com. That's KUIU.com to find out about the best ultralight hunting gear on the market. I also do a Q&A session on my Instagram about 2 or 3 times a week where I answer questions in regards to all things, but a lot of KUIU questions come in. Make sure you tune into that. I want to thank phonescope.com. Use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount. I use Phonescope for all my digiscoping, and pictures and videos on my Instagram account come from the Phonescope. I use the JScott19 promo code, save 10%. And I want to finish by saying thanks to onxmaps.com. I use Onyx Maps for all my hunts, all my fishing trips, and I also use it in my real estate business. You go to onxmaps.com, use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to save 20%. It's going to give you a 20% savings there. The phone app is unbelievable. It's replaced the GPS. I like the tracking device where you can breadcrumb your way in and out. If you go on my Instagram account, I'm showing people how I use Onyx every day to plan my glassing strategies and my tactics and my glassing points and how I'm going to get there and the different points and country that I'm going to cover. Everything about it, from the aerial to the topo to the hybrid mode, the measuring line distance tools. I love the ability that I can share a waypoint with Cortland or Cody and say, I've got a big buck, here's where he's at. Or I'm on a point, I can see a big buck, come to me, I can share the waypoint, and the guys show up. I love Onyx maps. Use the JScott19 promo code. Guys, I appreciate you supporting all of these different sponsors. I hear from the sponsors every day about the support that you give them. Again, if you guys have any questions of me, you can email me at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com or send me a direct message on Instagram. That's at jscottoutdoors. Guys, until then, to both of you, God bless. And for
Thank you
those
very
deer
much,
hunters
Jared.
that are starting tomorrow, get after them. And
Good luck.
it's a great time of year.
Get out and chase them. I appreciate
Yeah,
it, Jay.
put
Thank you.
put the eyes on them.
Let's do it.
Yep. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay.